Welcome to the Daily Insider here on Vegas Insider. I am Kevin Rogers. Thursday, December 30th, 2021, as this year coming to a close in 2 days. And we'll have the college football playoff tomorrow with the two semifinal games, Georgia, Michigan in the Orange Bowl, Alabama, Cincinnati in the Cotton Bowl. And we got plenty of college football to talk about. Really excited about today's guest, Mike Morgan. He covers college football and college basketball play-by-play for ESPN and the SEC network, among other things, and also calls NFL on the radio. So he's pretty well connected. We're going to get Mike on in just a moment and talk about the bowl season and look ahead to the college football playoff with him. But before we get to Mike, I want to tell you about BetMGM. They're the king of sports books, and for new customers, new players, bet $10 to win $200 if your team scores a touchdown. Bet on any NFL money line, and if your team scores a touchdown, you'll receive an additional $200 in free bets. And again, you must be 21 years or older to play, and it is legal in the following states: Arizona, New Jersey, Indiana, Colorado, Tennessee, West Virginia, Iowa, Virginia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Washington, D.C. only. Full terms and conditions apply. That is BetMGM. They are the king of sports books. All right, let's get it going right now. Mike Morgan, he covers a lot of things for ESPN, and he'll be on the call tomorrow. High Point in Kentucky on the SEC network, the Tubby Smith Bowl. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah. But, Mike, good to have you here. Very excited. First, you used to broadcast South Carolina athletics. Are you paying attention to the Mayo Bowl right now?
I am actually, yeah. I've got it on downstairs. This has become the home studio as we do a lot of games now since COVID from home. But yeah, it's two quick touchdown passes. Wow. Now I had the Tar Heels against Duke earlier in the season, and here's what I can tell you about North Carolina. Sam Howell is an NFL talent, and they've got some NFL receivers, but they have no defense. They've had no defense all year. So anyone can score on the Tar Heels. That's why I'm not uber shocked at what's just happened thus far. But the question will become now, can you stop Sam Howell in that offense? Can that Gamecock defense, which has been hot and cold, bottle them up? That'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and South Carolina closes nearly a 2-touchdown underdog, and they're up. But also we saw North Carolina come back against Wake this year and from that big hole. So they can come back. So we'll see. And the winner gets a lot of mayonnaise dumped on them, which is absolutely disgusting. I don't care, Mike. I love barbecue sauce. You poured that on me, I would not be able to do it.
I hate mayo in general. I've always said it's the condiment of the devil. So for me, the mere thought of someone pouring gallons upon gallons on top of my head, it ranks like some people have a fear of spiders or snakes. I would rather have that perhaps than 5 gallons of mayonnaise on my head.
Now, you did the Cure Bowl on ESPN. That was actually a very exciting game. It was Coastal Carolina, Northern Illinois, back and forth game. Coastal won 47-41. But here's the question I have for you. The final seconds of that game, it was a little questionable, to say the least. Northern Illinois was driving. You can pretty much fill in all the blanks for me, but just tell the audience, if you missed the end of the Cure Bowl, what happened in that game.
Yeah, first off, I mean, it was a privilege to call maybe the most exciting bowl game that's taken place thus far. Hopefully the playoff games tomorrow will surpass that, or at least one of them will. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to go too like inside baseball on every referee knack of this final play, but basically it's this: you're Coastal Carolina, you're up 4 or 5 points. You're Northern Illinois, you're driving, you have no timeouts, you need a touchdown, a field goal does you no good. They have a 4th down and about a yard from, say, the 7-yard line. They throw the ball out in the flat. Guy catches it at around the 3. So, A, he's got the first down. B, it looks like a catch, although it's questionable. C, was he tackled inbounds or out of bounds? The side judge, you could tell like the fireworks were going off in his head, because he's struggling to figure out, A, is he going to rule it a catch? And initially, he's assuming the guy is going to get out of bounds, clock stops, no worries, right? You had 2 seconds left, I think, and then you get the final playoff. Well, to his surprise, the guy who caught it got tackled inbounds, but it's a first down. So the clock stops temporarily. The center judge sets up the ball, and as you can hear me saying on the call, they'll go on the whistle. The whistle meaning, okay, first down. Center judge spots it, blows the whistle, gets the hell out of the way. You get the snap off for the final play. Northern Illinois was at the line of scrimmage. They were ready. But because of the confusion, if you watch the side judge, first he gives a half-hearted, okay, inbounds, let's go ahead and start the clock. Then it's like, oh, shoot, never mind. It's a first down, stop the clock temporarily. Then the center judge, he places the ball down but never gets out of the way, and they don't get the snap off. So it was a very anticlimactic ending to an otherwise brilliant game. And if I'm Northern Illinois, I'm upset. The MAC commissioner went off on that Conference USA officiating crew, not surprisingly. It put a little bit of a bad tarnish on an otherwise hell of a game. And again, congrats to Coastal Carolina. We don't know if Northern Illinois was going to score in that final play anyway, but it would have been a lot of fun to see them get it off.
Yeah, and that's all it's about, is that Northern Illinois, Mike, didn't lose the game on that play. They just didn't get an opportunity. Granted, they could have had the ball thrown incomplete pass. The game's over, and who cares? Right. But then there's no conversation. Coastal Carolina wins. We all move on. But here you say, what was going on 2 seconds? Like, let's go. It's like, what are we rushing for?
What are we rushing for? And then, and this is what I get all the time from fans. And look, there are some things that are not reviewable. But in a situation like this, where it's a time-sensitive issue, how you don't go and say, wait, let's go upstairs, let's check this thing out, hold off on the celebration. We're not sure if everything here is kosher. How you don't do that is it's just a waste of resources. Like we have everything. So you could have gone, you could have checked it out, you could have made sure that everything on the field was correct, and you could have made sure that whether or not they were entitled to another play, but it didn't happen. It's the kind of play that you scratch your head and you say, how can so many things go wrong at the end, and how can we not use instant replay to try to make them right? But unfortunately, they didn't.
You know what's so funny, Mike, is that those early bowl games that a lot of people kind of frown upon, they're like, oh, it's the MAC and Conference USA and Mountain West and no one cares. Those are normally, I feel like, the best games, because once you get into these mid-tier SEC, ACC, Big Ten teams that really don't care about being there, these games aren't good. You're getting the better games that first weekend.
I couldn't agree more, and that's why I was so excited for the assignment, because I've had those games you're talking about where it's an SEC team that had a disappointing 7-5, 6-6 year, and they're playing in a tier 2 bowl game, and players opted out. The other players are not all in, and they lay an egg, and it's just a bad football game. If you go back and you watch, and not that you would have any interest in doing this, but I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere, our open, the way I told our production crew that I wanted to open that game was, here's the story about this game. No coach has left for another job. No player has opted out, and there's no lack of motivation for either sideline. That's what we love about a bowl game. That's the way it used to be with everybody. Now you got to cherry pick which bowl games have those three things going for them, and our game did.
Because like even today, you have the Peach Bowl, Pitt and Michigan State. Kenny Pickett, I get why he doesn't want to play, and there's not a lot to play for there. Kenneth Walker, he's out, and you're kind of like, if you're a fan, you're going to these games, and it literally, Mike, is like an exhibition.
No doubt. I'm in Atlanta, and I saw the buses for both those teams, and I was out the other night going to a Hawks game, and I heard one of the fans go, "Wow, I wonder if we can get Kenny Pickett's autograph." I didn't have the heart to tell that young fan, Kenny Pickett decided not to play. So too did the marquee player for Michigan State. Yeah, that is like exhibit A of what can be wrong with bowl games, and why there's so much talk about expanded playoff and everything else. But yeah, that is a bowl game scenario at its worst.
What were your thoughts, Mike, with this cancellation the other night, NC State, UCLA? Again, nothing on NC State. It was UCLA that did it. And, then there was the stuff coming out. They were at SeaWorld. They were on one of those naval ships. They were doing all of this. Who knows where they caught COVID. But to do that right before the game, and look, I have nothing to do with NC State at all. But these fans go across the country. UCLA is going 2 hours from LA to San Diego. You're spending this money on flights, hotels, all this, and we're not playing the game now. What were your thoughts on how that whole thing went down?
I hate it, but here's what I'm trying to navigate through when it comes to football and basketball games, because you're seeing issues with both. I've had coaches in both sports tell me the fact that we were ever testing vaxxed players who are asymptomatic is ridiculous. And it's like the whole world of common sense has been set off its axis. And this is not a political play. Like, I hate when people try to politicize the virus, but clearly you keep moving the goalposts and we are not using common sense anymore. We all got vaccinated, or most of us did, because if you're vaccinated and you don't have symptoms, you shouldn't need to be tested. So why are you testing players? I don't know if that's the case specifically with UCLA. For all I know, they had 10 kids that are, bedridden right now. I don't know the details, but I'm telling you that coaches have told me we're no longer going to test asymptomatic players who have been vaccinated. That's the whole reason why we got a vaccine. Like this, it doesn't make any sense. And these kids, these athletes, they're not going to hospitals. They're not dying. They're testing positive and they're sitting at home fine. So the way we're handling this has been so nonsensical, illogical, impractical. And I think, unfortunately, colleges are so paranoid about lawsuits that they look to the NFL and the NBA and the NHL to lead the way on this. So you need Adam Silver, who's already said we're not stopping play in the NBA. You need Roger Goodell. They're not missing any games. You need them to start kind of laying the groundwork so the colleges can follow, and we don't act like it's 2020 and there's no vaccine and everybody who gets COVID is bedridden for 10 days. Like, this is not the same thing as it was 20 months ago. We just have to stop acting like it is.
And you do a lot of college basketball. I mentioned you're doing the Kentucky High Point game tomorrow. And we just keep seeing, Mike, now that we have conference play, it's one thing to just bag a bunch of non-conference games. But now conference play has started. You're seeing in the Big East, in the ACC, in the Pac-12. You go through all these different conferences already. Duke is out for 10 days. UCLA out for 10 days. And it's just so frustrating. You say, A, when are you going to make those games up? And B, is this what it's going to be like, where there's going to be some teams playing 12 conference games, others play 18. And even also another point, the Big East, they got rid of the rule of the forfeit. We got to stop with that. The whole you're 6, you have to forfeit. Like, come on, everyone's in the same boat right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, college basketball gets the worst of this because it's a winter sport. It's 2 games a week. And what we've learned, the virus is not transmitted on the football field. You're outdoors, and it just hasn't proven to be an issue there. But with basketball, indoors, no pads, just wearing a sleeveless jersey, it's more conducive to perhaps spreading. And of course, you're on the road, you're traveling together, you're rooming together. You don't have the same travel accommodations that you do at, say, the NBA level, obviously, where everybody gets their own room and what have you. So, we have to. You've had a number of coaches that have been outspoken now publicly and privately that we can't do this like we did it 20 months ago. We have to. If you have symptoms, then you get tested. And if you're positive, you quarantine. That's a no-brainer. If you don't have symptoms and you've been vaccinated, then why would you be tested? So I think I know that's changing because coaches have told me. And I don't anticipate we're going to do what we did last year. And just every time, 3 kids test positive, we contact trace, and then we got to bag the game. I don't think that's going to reach that level this year.
Let's get back on the field now. I want to look at the two playoff games with you for tomorrow, Mike. Let's start with the Cotton Bowl first, Cincinnati, Alabama. And look, Cincinnati should be at the dance. I believe that. Undefeated, you did your part. But your prize is Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide after they won the SEC title. And Nick Saban's done a very good job in that first round, the semifinal of the playoff over these years. And now you get Cincinnati. You're laying 2 touchdowns in this one. What are your thoughts here on this one if Cincinnati can hang in this game?
Well, the good news, excuse me, we'll edit out the cough later. The good news for Cincinnati is they have 2 pro corners, right? One of which is as good as any corner in college football. And so you can match up fairly well, better than most teams would, against those NFL wide receivers for Alabama. The problem is Alabama is so dynamic offensively that even if that's the case, well, they can ground and pound you. You know, the way they beat Georgia was not ground and pound. The way they beat Georgia is for the first time basically all year, their pass protection was elite, and they gave a Heisman Trophy candidate time to throw. And if you give him time to throw to those receivers like Jameson Williams, they're going to get open and they're going to beat you on big plays. But even if you don't do that, even if you don't have that issue, even if you, let's just say, shut down Alabama's wideouts, is Cincinnati good enough where they can do both, where they can bottle up the passing game and shut down Alabama running the football? I don't think so. I think Cincinnati is a great story, but I just think this is a mismatch and Alabama will prevail.
Now, if they do, they'll get the winner of Georgia, Michigan. And of course, with Georgia, Mike, you can't get over that hump against Alabama. That's what it feels like. That Kirby against his old boss, that they've just found ways. I mean, Alabama took care of him in the last time, but they've had other times where Georgia's blown a lead against Alabama, and they just can't get over the hump against them. So first you got to beat Michigan before you face Alabama. But what do you think here about the Bulldogs bouncing back? Or does Jim Harbaugh really, is he onto something here? Beating Ohio State finally, winning the Big Ten title finally, that now that Michigan can continue here and advance the championship?
Well, look, I've been a Harbaugh defender for a while. I think he's good for college football. Even if you hate him, he's good for college football, right? College football, like any other sport, needs villains, and Harbaugh is very polarizing. Michigan being relevant again is good for college football. So I love this story. I can tell you Aiden Hutchinson was number 2 on my Heisman ballot, behind the guy that we just talked about at quarterbacking for Alabama. All that being said, what I don't like about this matchup for Michigan is that don't get it twisted. Georgia is elite against the run, and that's what Michigan is good at doing. Michigan's best games this year, McNamara barely threw the ball. He barely threw for 200 yards. When they were struggling, that's when McNamara threw it 35, 40 times, and that's when they lost. So I just don't know if Michigan gets past 20, 23 points, and that really is problematic because I think Georgia can do that, even though everybody's bagging Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett's not the problem. Stetson Bennett did not lose that game for him. Georgia's defense lost that game for him. But I don't think Georgia's defense is going to struggle with that Michigan offense. So I give Georgia the edge in that game. I hope it's a great game. I think it's got the potential to be a really good game. I just don't like the matchup for Michigan.
Now, moving to Sunday, Mike, in the NFL, Week 17, not the final week, so another week to go after this. But you have the call on the Cowboys and the Cardinals in Dallas, Arlington, Jerry's World on Sunday on national radio. Dallas, I mean, huge win last week over Washington. The offense, you say, wow, like if this is what Dallas is going to be, they're a Super Bowl contender. But what do you make of Arizona and what's happened to them recently, that they were on fire? Kyler got hurt. They've lost the last 2. I mean, the Detroit loss is inexplicable, and then losing to a pretty good Indianapolis team, even though they were down a lot of bodies. But what do you make here if the Cardinals can rebound from their 2-game skid?
Yeah, I think we're all trying to figure out what the Cardinals are all about. You start off 7-0 and everything is rocking and rolling, and Kyler Murray is quickly ascending up that list of really good quarterbacks in the NFL. And and then all of a sudden the wheels come off, and it's kind of hard to make heads or tails of what that's all about. This to me is a matchup of like two really good teams, but are either one of them good enough to be in the Super Bowl? Because I think so many people are anticipating Green Bay, Tampa Bay, Rodgers, Brady, NFC Championship, right? And then you've got these two teams, and you got the Rams. Maybe I'm missing somebody else, but that's the main five that I'm thinking of. Maybe the 49ers. I just had the 49ers a couple weeks ago. Love Deebo Samuel, but I just don't know with Garoppolo. He's just so inconsistent. But I think the winner of this game will make one more case for, hey, don't forget about us. We're Super Bowl good too. The loser, that you're going to watch everybody just pile on they're not good enough. They're not going to make a run of the playoffs. I just don't see it. Dak really needed that get-right game last week. Now, he did it against a hapless Washington club that I don't know how much we're going to take out of that. But there's a lot to like out of Dallas. I mean, there's so many weapons on both sides of the ball. You look at Parsons. You look at the guys they've drafted on defense the last couple of years, and they weren't guys that were like, the can't miss guy. There was no like Boza brother in there, right? There was no Jalen Ramsey that had that kind of hype coming out of college. But you look at the last few cats that they've gotten and the plays that they're making. So they got a bunch of guys in their early 20s that are just balling out on that defense. And then offensively, the line is good. Dak can be really good. You got two good running backs. You got two good receivers. Like, there's a lot to like about that team. So I'm just hoping we see both teams at their best. If we do, that game will be a hell of a lot of fun to call for me and a hell of a lot of fun to watch. I know it's nationally televised on Fox. I just hope Arizona finds itself again. We got a really good game.
Now, before I let you go, Mike, you work for ESPN, and they've had obviously a lot more gambling talk. They have the Daily Wager on there, and you watch Game Day, and they make picks. What do they tell you on the play-by-play broadcast? Like, what can you discuss? What can't you discuss? Or it's kind of like up to you. I mean, you don't go the Al Michaels route and say, well, this play means a lot for some people. Yeah. But how did they address it to you as far as like handling it on a play-by-play on their broadcasts?
It's honestly, and people think I'm making this up or covering or whatever the case may be. It's never spoken to. We're never told anything. There's no directives like, hey, whatever you do, don't mention the spread. 10 years ago, that probably would have been different. 10 years ago, if I went on the air and said, well, that extra point means they cover the 3.5, so this is meaningful, I probably would have had an email within minutes. Now I think we all have just embraced sports gambling. We realize it's part of the culture. It's a big reason why people watch. We were talking about bowl games earlier. Make no mistake about it. Millions of people tune into those bowl games when they have no idea anything about either one of those teams, couldn't name one player on either one of those teams, but they know that Coastal Carolina is a 6-point favorite against Northern Illinois, and they got a little interest in it. So I think for whatever reason, we fought it and fought. I say we, I'm not including me in this, but I think people upon high fought that whole thing for so long. And now it's like, what are we doing? People just want to have fun. Like, not everybody who gambles is some degenerate that you like see in a movie. And like, it's just, people love picking. Fantasy football is gambling. You can call it whatever you want to call it. It's gambling and people love it. So to go back to your question, no, I've never been told, don't say this, don't say that. I've never been told to promote gambling, but we're at the point now where I think people just accept it. If you watch any ESPN or Fox or any other show previewing college or pro games, they all have what? The matchup, the point spread, sometimes even the over-under. So we're not running away from it anymore.
Mike, you're on the call tomorrow on SEC Network at Rupp for Kentucky and High Point.
I am, yeah. Tubby Smith, the validity of this game obviously is Well, first off, Kentucky is instant eyeballs. If there's one basketball blue blood that people are going to watch, they could have a scrimmage out in the parking lot, and we could go ahead and broadcast it, and we'll draw a rating. But it's the return of Tubby Smith. They're going to retire his jersey. He won a national championship, of course, at Kentucky in 1998. And there hasn't been a whole lot of connections since then because, quite frankly, Tubby's been a busy guy. He's been coaching 3 or 4 different programs since then. So it'll be a very nice moment on New Year's. It'll be a noon tip that'll get you warmed up before we get to the soup du jour, if you will, the 2 college football playoff games that'll follow us on the ESPN network. So looking forward to the call. Kentucky's good this year. Last year, Kentucky was a nightmare. Kevin, you and I go back a ways. I remember when we'd actually talk SEC basketball on your show. Back then, the SEC was going through some hard times. Now it's common to expect 7 or 8 teams to be in the tournament. Kentucky will be one of those, but they're not alone. There's a lot of good teams in this league.
Yeah, we already saw LSU Auburn last night, Alabama, Tennessee. I mean, there's a lot of really good teams in this conference. Kentucky just blew out Missouri last night for their to win their SEC opener. Before I let you go again, Sunday, your game, where can people find it on the air, the Cardinals and the Cowboys?
Yeah, it's on Compass Media. So, I mean, it'll be on over 100 stations nationwide. They carry every Dallas Cowboy game nationally, as well as a doubleheader game of the week. So this is my first time doing a Cowboy game for them. I've done several others, but chances are if you're near a major market, it'll be on one of the sports stations near you.
Mike Morgan, you can find him on Twitter at Morgan On Air, and you can find him on ESPN as well, college football, college basketball, and I guess even college baseball, right?
Yeah. Come March, absolutely.
So he'll be a very busy guy. Mike, thank you so much. Happy New Year. We'll talk to you again soon.
Kevin, always enjoy it. Appreciate it.
All right, there is Mike Morgan, and very nice guy. I actually, quick story on him. I met him in Kansas in 2004 or 2005, I believe. I was working radio in Kansas City. He was the play-by-play voice of South Carolina basketball, University of South Carolina Gamecock basketball. They were in Lawrence to play Kansas, and I had gotten him on my show, and just sometimes you get play-by-play guys on and you just have them on, thank you, whatever. But then I went to the game and I met him there and just forged a relationship. Really nice guy. And he worked on Braves broadcasts for years as well in Atlanta and moved to ESPN. So check him out. And you could find him there calling a lot of games during the college football, basketball, and baseball season. Let's get to some NBA coming up in just a moment. First, I want to tell you about DraftKings. And you want to wear that crown like our friend on the screen, the GOAT. You could score your seat to the Tournament of Champions. The DraftKings Championship Series is the ultimate competition of contest winners from daily fantasy sports, sportsbook, and casino. The one and only place you can compete in the king of competitions. The best of the best in each domain will compete for series supremacy in their own domain's Tournament of Champions. They'll have one goal in mind: win the ultimate crown and earn the title of the greatest of all time, the GOAT. That's right, like our friend there. He is the ultimate GOAT. You can wear the crown just like him. Check it out. More details at DraftKings.com. All right, NBA, there's only 4 games tonight. Kevin Durant returns for Brooklyn. He is off of the COVID list, and the Nets face the 76ers. Third time this year that those two teams are playing, and the Nets so far, they are 2-0 against Philadelphia. And the Nets, they're coming off this road trip out west, where they held off the Lakers on Christmas night, a game that they were up big. Lakers came all the way back, tied it. James Harden didn't have the greatest game, but he had 39 in the next game against the Clippers, a 124-108 victory, and that was on Monday. So the Nets now back at home. Philadelphia is off back-to-back wins at Washington and Toronto, and so far Brooklyn, who lost 2 of 3 to Philadelphia last year, they've won the first 2 this year. And again, Kevin Durant expected back for the Nets, and now you got Durant and Harden, and you got the Nets that we know, and eventually we'll see Kyrie back in the road games coming up after the new year. The Bucks and the Magic, they meet in Orlando for the second time in 3 nights. Milwaukee, they were up big on Orlando back on Tuesday, and the Magic came back, made it interesting, but then the Bucks won 127-110, laying 15. And Milwaukee's just owned Orlando, and Milwaukee's owned a lot of teams, but Milwaukee now has won 10 straight against Orlando. That dates back to the bubble back in 2020 when they beat them in the first round. But Milwaukee in some of these games against Orlando, they've scored 127, 123, 117, 114, 124, 121. And those are the games all since the 2021 season. So the Bucks they've owned Orlando in this span. The Magic, they were without Cole Anthony the other night. He had an ankle injury. Orlando's lost 3 straight. And the Magic right now at 7-28, or 2-12 at home. And one of those wins came over Utah somehow. Cavaliers and the Wizards in Washington. Ricky Rubio out for the year for the Cavs, torn ACL. That's bad for them because he was playing well. And Cleveland off this loss to New Orleans. Now 25-9 ATS for the Cavs, still pretty good, but 20-14 overall. And Cleveland taking on this Washington team that has lost 2 straight. And Bradley Beal should be back tonight. Let me make sure. He's questionable. Now, Beal did get the vaccine. He was one of the star players that did not get the vaccine. And one of the reasons why is at Capital One Arena in Washington, you have to be vaccinated starting January 15th. So Beal was kind of under the gun there, and he got the first dose. So he will come back. Not sure if it's tonight, though, but Wizards laying 3.5, 210.5 is the total. And so far this year, Washington and Cleveland have played twice, and the Cavaliers covered both times as an underdog. Road team has won each time. Washington won in Cleveland 97-94 back in mid-November. Cavs won in D.C. 116-101 back earlier this month. The last game of the night, the Warriors and the Nuggets, they hook up in Denver. They just played 2 days ago in San Francisco. The Nuggets won 89-86. Draymond Green didn't play for Golden State. He's in the protocol. But the Nuggets scored 60 in the first half. They were up 60-36 at the half. Denver scored 29 points in the second half, 14 in the third, 15 in the fourth. Golden State was down, 1? They were down 24 at the half. They cut it all the way to 1, but they just couldn't get over the hump. And the Nuggets ended up winning that game by 3. Game easily stayed under the total of 217.5. Now the total's dipped to 214.5, but Golden State favored on the road, and the Warriors 11-4 away from Chase Center. Nuggets only 8-6 at home. Nuggets at 17-16, and I get they've had injuries, and Jamal Murray hasn't played yet, and Michael Porter Jr. is done for the year. But Denver, who normally had a great home court advantage, they are just 8-6 at home and 9-10 on the road. So that's those are the plays, or those are the games, I should say, inside the NBA tonight. College football, Purdue and Tennessee coming up at 3 o'clock, Music City Bowl. Vols laying 7.5 there. Purdue's down a couple of their top guys. That game in Nashville. Peach Bowl in Atlanta. Pitt and Michigan State. I was about to say Sam Pickett combined, Sam Howell and Kenny Pickett. But Kenny Pickett, he's not going to play. No reason to play. And the Panthers a 3.5-point dog to the Spartans. Arizona State and Wisconsin. The Las Vegas Bowl at Allegiant Stadium tonight, 10:30. The degenerate special. Badgers laying 7 to Herm Edwards' Sun Devils coming up in that game. And college basketball, Michigan UCF is kind of an interesting matchup tonight in Orlando. Michigan laying 3. And the Pac-12, Utah, Oregon State. Oregon State's been a disaster this year. They were in the Elite 8 last year. They have 2 wins in 12 tries this year. Utah laying 4.5 on the road in Corvallis tonight. A lot of Conference USA, Horizon, WAC, Sunbelt, Summit, Big West. That's what's going on tonight. Big Sky, like that. That's what you got for the Thursday card in college basketball. You don't have any really major matchups. Atlantic 10, St. Joe's, and Richmond. So there are a lot of matchups around a lot of conferences coming up later this evening. So, but at least there's some action in college basketball, which is good. We've had a lot of cancellations, postponements. BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Bet $10 to win $200 if your team scores a touchdown. Bet on any NFL money line. And if your team scores a touchdown, you'll receive an additional $200 in free bets. Again, for new players only. Must be 21 years or older to play and legal in the following states: Arizona, New Jersey, Indiana, Colorado, Tennessee, West Virginia, Iowa, Virginia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C. only. Full terms and conditions apply. That is BetMGM. They are the king of sportsbooks. My thanks again to Mike Morgan for hopping on. And Mike will be on the call tomorrow on the SEC Network, play-by-play, Kentucky and High Point from Rupp Arena. And he'll also be calling the Cardinals and the Cowboys on national radio on Compass Media on Sunday afternoon, 4:25 kick out in Dallas. And you can find him on Twitter at Morgan On Air. I am Kevin Rogers. Coming up tomorrow, Vince Akins. He normally joins us on Thursdays. He's going to join us on Friday to close out the year. And we'll get his trends likely on the two semifinal games and Week 17 action in the NFL. I am Kevin Rogers. Thanks a lot for tuning in. And as always, best of luck with your bets.